Good evening and welcome to the first Merlin Rockets boat chat presentation. I'm Chris Kilsby, I'm the chair of the Merlin Rocket Owners Association. Firstly, a bit of housekeeping. Please can I ask that you leave your camera off because we're going to be recording this presentation. And I know you can all hear me, so we can crack on. The Merlin Rocket class is really proud to have some amazing talent in our fleet, and it's great to be able to share some knowledge with the Merlin class and also the wider community. We're planning to run a few of these over the coming months, so please watch out for further information. Before the presentation starts, I want to take this opportunity to give a few plugs. So firstly, I want to ask our existing members, if you've not renewed your membership subs, please can you do so? And those who are not yet members but would like to be, if you can go to the website, you can find out some more about that. And the cost is as little as £15 a year, so it's pretty good value for the magazines, yearbooks, and obviously excellent racing. Secondly, I want to plug the Aspire Merlin Rocket Champs. These are going to be held at the beautiful East Lothian Yacht Club between the 15th and 19th of August, and it's going to be a fantastic event. We've already got, and in the 9 days that we've been, the entry has been open, we've got 30 entries already, and we've got a max of 80, I think. So yeah, if you could just enter if you're intending to. There's a small, I think, £25 deposit, and then we can get to understand how many entries we're likely to get so that we can start planning for you and for the event. Importantly, I want you to know that we're really keen on all levels of sailor across the fleet. And we're also really keen to get both GPR and wooden boats represented at the champs. So please know that everyone is welcome. Finally, I just want to say the Merlin Rocket Champs will be exhibiting at the M.R.O.A Dinghy Show between the 27th and 28th of February. And I know that Pip, Pat, and others have put a lot of effort into putting a video together and getting the site looking good. So now on to our presentation. We'll have time for questions at the end. However, please feel free to use the chat box and drop any questions that you might have as we go. To many, Sam Brearey needs no introduction. He crews 3788 Blew My Mind with our training coordinator, Christian Birrell, and he's won the last 2 championships at Lyme Regis and Lou. Outside the Merlin Rockets, Sam has won 2 Fireball World Championships and 3 Europeans. Away from sailing, Sam is the owner of Metis Athletes Management, a company specializing in the support and development of athletes across the world stage. This gives Sam a great background to talk to us about the preparations for the Aspire Merlin Rockets Nationals, preparing yourself, your boat, and your knowledge about the location and getting on the water. It will also include a section about planning and development. So the presentation will be 30 to 40 minutes, and then there'll be a Q&A afterwards. And just to remind people to turn their screens off if you haven't already. That'd be great. Thank you. Over to you, Sam.
Yeah, Sam, perfect.
You're in.
Yeah, sorry, I can unmute. Yeah, cool. Evening, guys. Thanks so much for coming along. I'll try not bore you too much. I just want to give you a bit of an overview to how Christian and I approach the bigger regattas that we go through. Christian and I have sailed together now for years, probably 8 years or so. I think we're very in tune with each other's preparation and what is important for both of us when it comes to getting ready for the big events. And so today what we'll quickly touch on are a few of the key points, so a bit of an overview of what our schedule and program looks like, mostly pre-COVID, the timeline of what we go through and when, a bit about what controllables we try to control, some pre-event stuff with the boat and ourselves as well. And then we'll go into the actual regattas themselves and have a look at when we get to the venue, the first few days in a venue, how we approach the racing in a venue, because it all sort of ties in together as far as we're concerned. And then touch on the results table, although we try and not do that too much, but it's important that we understand it. And then a sort of quick summary, and then any questions you guys have. So the first thing is the overview of, I think, understanding what being successful in a big regatta requires. And I'll apologize in advance for a bit of repetition through the deck, and that's because there's no magic bullet when it comes to winning regattas, and there's no magic bullets to getting it right when it matters the most, but just doing the right things consistently all of the time, over and over again, is what makes a real difference. And so I think if we look at the controllable aspects, we love sailing because it's a very uncontrollable sport, and there's a lot of variables involved, and that's what makes it so difficult. But there's also a huge amount we can control, and we can control ourselves through our fitness that we take into a regatta, as well as our weight. We can control our boat and the designs within our boat, so like the systems, the sails, the foils. In terms of racing, we can control how we deal with nutrition on and off the water. We deal with our recovery from days sailing, especially on the windier days. Our approach mentally going into regattas, but also each individual race. And it's very important that, if we're doing 2, 3, 4 races a day, how we transition through those races in a day becomes increasingly more important. And how we deliver on the water. And by that, I mean our raw skill set that we take to the water. So, how we deliver in every tack we do, every jibe, every hoist, every drop, they're all deliverables that we can control a lot ourselves. And then we've got how we sail in a regatta, and we'll talk a bit about high percentage sailing, and we'll try and break down for you how we view that in our minds, how to avoid letters, avoiding the big numbers, and we'll see that a lot more when we get to the results table, and we'll talk about that later. The fact that every point matters, and it's quite often very easy to lose sight of that over a long regatta. And the fact that a regatta isn't just you rock up to a venue and you race for 5 days. A regatta is planned 2-3 years in ahead of time. I think the next two Merlin Nationals are booked in, if not 3. So we know when they're going to be, we know where they're going to be. So there's no reason to not be fully planned above. Loving every day and relaxing is what I think a lot of people miss when it comes to regattas, and we'll go into a bit of that later on as well. And then the top 2 inches, we just mean our mind and our thought process. So if we have a quick look at the timeline of a regatta, so day 0 I count here as that final day of racing. So you finish racing and you've hopefully got your medal, or you've achieved the position that you want to achieve, and you're really happy, and you can go away and be celebrated and celebrate with your friends and family. But if you draw the timeline back from that, this is sort of what Chris and I try and do as much as we can. Obviously, COVID's changed that a little bit, but our big preparation will start sort of 6 months away from the championships, and that's when we'll really get locked into this design phase. So when you're far enough away from the championship that you've got enough time to not worry too much about, winning the smaller regattas or performing in the open meetings and things, you can look a lot more at testing and developing your sails and your boat and your systems. And I'm sure everyone is well aware of how much we love working on our dear Bluey. But that starts for us sort of 6 months away, and a lot of testing work goes into that. And this is some of the stuff we were looking at going into Lyme Regis. And then as we get closer, we sort of get 4 months away. We're still testing all of our sails and all of our spars and foils, and testing different techniques, especially in waves and stuff where there's a bit of variation. But we also then start looking at getting physically ready. And when I say we, it's probably a bit more of a royal we, because Christian does most of the work, so I'm sure you can all imagine. But we work very hard on getting our weight especially right. Boats are notoriously weight sensitive, and with Christian being a bit shorter than I am, it's a difficult dynamic to deal with sometimes. So that starts for me a long way out from the championships. And then the boat and system prep comes into that as well. So we try and narrow down this funnel in towards the final day of racing. So sort of 6 months you start it all, and then by 4 months you're hoping to have developed some systems, and you can put them to the side as completed and move on to the next ones. And then 3 months or so out, we turn our focus a bit more to the tuning and training side of it. So at this point, we hope that we've got pretty close to a sail setup that we like, that the systems on board are roughly where we want them to be. And it's much more then about how we're sailing the boat and looking at those finer margins. And then we get a couple of months out and we start looking a bit more at our race sharpness. So we're still doing all this other stuff from before. We're still sail testing. We're still making sure our bodies are right. We're still doing some tuning and training, but we're starting to focus much more on how we're racing around a course. So we're looking much more at our communication side of stuff, making sure we're not missing anything big around a racetrack. Our communication at the start is really on point, and that we're getting in sync with each other. It's just dealing with the obvious, as we would call it. And then when you get 3 weeks away, this is where we lock everything in. So we do our final sail fit and test. And so we've done all our testing on the sails and we like what we've got. So we'll do our final sort of fit of those sails, make sure they work on the boat properly, the luff wires are all the right lengths, there's no issues in the mast track with the luff of the main, all those little bits that can just cause you troubles later on. And then 2 weeks away, we'll do our final rig and settings check. So we'll do a complete overhaul of Bluey, make sure that all of our tensions are where we want them to be, all of the marking for the tension is clear and obvious, and it's all nice and bold. And we know what all the different steps are going to be in our rig and stuff. So when we get to the venue, we're very confident in what we've got, and we need to take maybe 1 or 2 measurements when we get there. And as long as that lines up with what we have got written down as it should be, then we're very confident that the rig and everything is good to go. And then we get into the bit that obviously everyone sees. So then 8 days away from that final day, you're looking at your measurement side of things. And then you get into your regatta days for the next sort of 5 days, with the big crunch point coming on that final day, just making sure that we know what you have to do. So, if you've got to put certain points into a team or protect a certain number of points in the race table, then it makes a big difference. And we make sure we know what we have to do. And that sort of all leads then into that final day of that's it, and we can relax for a few months and then go back into the next phase of things. So that's sort of like our timeline as loosely as I can get it. And these are all the different things that we then try and look after pre-events. That's very much sort of the boat side of things and us side of things. And then there's a whole other set of things we can do, right? So making sure we've got all the correct equipment with us, which isn't just necessarily the boat, but all the other stuff that goes with that, which we'll come on to. Making sure we've done some research on the venue. So, Lewis and Lyme were quite nice for us because we've done a lot of sailing there between us. So we felt very comfortable in those venues. We got a lot of time down at Lyme Regis before the Nationals, meeting and greeting the local boat crews and other such things. But we spent a lot of time down there, which is really nice. Obviously up in Scotland, it's going to be much harder to spend time in the venue. So we'll have to look a lot more at speaking to people that have been there, looking at some of the Google map side of things and seeing if we can work out anything that we might want to look for when we get there. And then it's having a bit of understanding around the expected breeze that we're going to get, the expected sea state, and then things like the tidal flows, if there's going to be any tidal impacts that we need to know of. And all of this will happen before the event, before we even get there. So the more of this stuff you can do before you get in your car and head off, the better for sure. And so I've sort of broken that down into the 4 or 5 main elements that are really important for us. And this is where Bluey's happiest, inside a shed surrounded by tools. But obviously Bluey's our number one tool around the race course. We wouldn't be able to be successful or be competitive without having Bluey in a really good shape that we can trust that she won't let us down, and all we're trying to do when we go to a regatta is make sure that if it comes down to it, it's not the boat that's letting us down, it's not the sails that's letting us down, it's not hiking legs letting us down. It'll be our ability around a race course not being good enough that will let us down, and that's what we're trying to achieve. So from here, we give a lot of attention to everything. We take the approach of, if something breaks, it isn't unlucky, it's because you didn't check it or replace it. It's sort of our rough approach to it. And Bluey gets a nice polish and a clean at least a week before. We check everything on her, and I mean absolutely everything. So every rope gets looked at, run along, make sure it's not about to fray or break. Every rope end gets burned. Every screw gets tightened and made sure it's got grip. Every bolt is checked with a spanner. Like absolutely everything is done. And as I'm sure everyone appreciates, there's a lot of screws and bolts on a Merlin rocket, but it's well worth it because one screw pulling out can cost you a race or a championship. So why not spend 20 minutes, an hour, half your life just checking screws? So that's really important to us, and we take the approach of, if we think something could break, we just replace it. Just fix the problem before it becomes a problem. So there's no ifs in our program as best we can manage. So make sure all the systems work. There's obviously a lot of take-ups and stuff on the Merlin, and making sure that they're not going to let us down is really important, especially on the poles, the flyaway poles we have a lot of issues with. So making sure that elastics are new, so they've got enough spring to them, and that they're running smoothly so they won't catch anything is super important. And then we'll give her another clean and a polish. So we like to clean and polish Bluey. So we'll give her a nice clean and polish before we get to the venue. And then we'll give her another clean and polish just after measurement. So we know that when the cover goes on that final night before racing, that she's ready to race. There's nothing else to do at that point. And that's really important to us, because if we can trust Bluey, then we can trust everything else around us. And then making sure we've got enough spares, obviously, on board. So for us, we take a few spares on the water with us just in case. And then we'll always give some spare clothing and a spare spinnaker onto a rib just in case. Just because obviously if a spinnaker rips, you don't have to lose a race to go and get another one. So that lives in a dry bag and a rib for us. And then we move on to our sail side of things. So obviously once Bluey's nice and smiley, we look at our sails, and we look a lot more at the design side of things with our sail setup. There's obviously in a Merlin so much variance you can have across all 3 of your sails. And that's one of the beautiful things about the class, is it's so interesting for sailors to get stuck into, because you can change little bits or you can change big bits, and there's all sorts of different schools of thought around there. But we put a lot of time into it to make sure that we're comfortable in how we sail a boat matches our sails. And it's one thing having a sail which is the perfect design sail for any given breeze, but if it's too finely designed that you have to constantly be changing a control to make sure it's working at close to maximum, that might not necessarily be the best sail for you. You might want a sail that is a bit more of an average all round sail, but requires less fine tuning on all the different systems and controls, because we all know how difficult it is to grab the vang, grab the cunner, grab the XYZ at any given time, and you don't want your sail to let you down if you're a touch late to do that. So we look at that a lot, and how we can streamline who does what in the boat to make sure that everything is working properly. And it's probably no surprise to a lot of people that Christian loves pulling his vang, so I often have a lot of vang work to do in the forearm to give Christian a bit of a break around the leeward mark, for example. And just working out all those bits is really important. We're starting to have knowledge of the sails for sure. And then when we're looking at our regatta side of things, we'll always make sure we get a new or a newish set for the nationals. It's also the biggest event of the year for us, other than Salcombe Week, of course. But we'd always make sure that we don't just rock up to the Nationals with a brand new set of sails, right? They go up before the Nationals in about 10 knots of breeze, something like that, just enough to get them going. But ideally you'll be close to centre, and we'll just have a complete check of them, make sure they fit on the boat properly, all the battens are the right battens, the right length, that the shape all looks okay and matches what we think it should look like. Things like the luff wire is in the jib, which sounds like such a silly thing, but I'm sure I can admit to having pulled up a jib myself and it, not having a luff wire in when you take it out of the bag, or it's got the wrong luff wire in because 6 months ago you swapped out this luff wire for that luff wire just in a hurry and you never thought about changing it back. And if you've got a different luff wire on, then all your settings get changed and it's just a nightmare. So doing all those bits to make sure that if it comes to it, we're very confident that our sails are fine and the spare set of sails is also going to be okay. So ideally having 2 matching sets obviously is the dream if you can get there. And then telltales and stuff is the other big one. People often forget. Making sure that you've got telltales where you want your telltales is really important. And then we get onto ourselves, our body, and this is the bit that Christian loves more than anything else. It's he told me out for a run this morning, actually, so I was very happy with him. But this is the bit that is hugely controllable. Like, this is probably the most controllable aspect of sailboat racing, is how you prepare your body physically to get to a regatta. And the way that I look at it is that hiking hurts, and nothing you can do will stop hiking hurting. So we're not trying to achieve that. All we're trying to achieve is getting to a place where hiking makes the difference for us. And so if you can hike for a minute longer than somebody else, that's a minute longer you can hold a lane. So that's a minute longer you've got to get into a race, get clear of a race, come back into a race, or X, Y, Z. So we're not trying to eliminate pain for sure. And we're trying to understand that it's the small differences that make big differences around the race course. So if you can, in a jibe at the wing mark, for example, if you're getting your pole away half a second later and out half a second earlier before the boat just in front or just behind you, that's the opportunity to extend away a boat length, or to maybe put yourself in a position to roll over the top of a boat and gain a place and gain a point. So around the race course, it makes a difference. And especially if you've got long days or windy days, it's very easy to get fatigued and then lose track of that speed and accuracy around a boat. And for me, that ties a lot into sleep. If you're not sleeping enough, you're not going to be fit enough. You're not going to be strong enough, and you're going to really struggle for sure. Weight management, we obviously talked about, and then just staying injury free and flexible. So we'll always make sure that we've ordered enough nutrition for the week. So we'll order special bars and gels to take on the water with us to make sure that we're not hungry and we're getting the right food inside us to maintain our accuracy around the race course. And that also extends to before and also just after. It's really important. The preparation side of things, for us, again, we try and get it done as early as possible. So I don't know how many of you have booked your accommodation for the Nationals already, for example, but it's quite a small place. There's not a huge amount of options available within walking distance, for example, of the club, or like a very close walk. So we like to make sure we've got as good a spot as possible where we can wake up relaxed in the day, get straight into the racing, and we don't have to worry about, if we need to nip back for X, Y, and Z, it's very easy for us to do. So that's really important for us. Obviously, your social tickets at the Nationals is really important. Get them booked in early. The clothing side of things, obviously you've got your day-to-day, but then probably the most important function of the Nationals is the fancy dress. So making sure that we're not running around last minute to get your fancy dress sorted out. And then with sailing gear, it's obviously very personal. For me, I hate being wet and I hate being cold. So I like to have a large variety of clothing with me at an event and also on the water, although Christian hates that bit of my sailing. But I love being warm, and so I'll always make sure I've got a spare wetsuit, for example, so I can always put a dry wetsuit on in the morning if it's been a horrible day raining. which we won't get in Scotland, obviously. But if it does happen to rain or snow, at least we've got a dry option for the next morning, and your other wetsuit's got longer to dry. And then having all of your tools and stuff with you. So we hate having to rely on other people for things we need. So if we need a tool, for example, we had one last year where we needed a very niche size Allen key, and we realized that at Salcombe. So rather than delay, we ordered that Allen key on the way back from Salcombe, so we know we had it in our toolbox for the next time we went sailing. So making sure you've got everything you need is super, super important for sure, and it makes a big difference for us. Any home comforts you like, probably more for international events, that's important. Any favorite items, if you've got a favorite chocolate bar that you need on a horrible day, make sure you've got it with you so you don't have to hunt around for it when you get off the water. And then all your different nutrition stuff, which I love. Others hate it, but I love it. To make sure you recover properly after a long day hiking makes a big difference for sure. And so this is sort of what people don't see when we go to regattas, is like the endless cleaning, the endless hours underneath the hood, working out all the systems, the hours doing different things to sails, checking them, and then going out in horribly cold conditions to just get sailing and do some training and tuning. And this all goes into before we even get to a venue. And then when we get to a venue, that's sort of when the fun bit kicks in. We try and have the horrible bit done and planned, so when we get to a venue we can just relax and really enjoy it. And it's all those little things that make a big difference. And the first few days, especially when we get to a venue, we really try and relax into it, make sure we're very comfortable in our surroundings. We know where like the nearest shop is, for example. We know our best breakfast location if we want to go out for breakfast. We know opening times for the shop, so we're not rushing around on a Sunday trying to find a shop that's open. We'll have done all that on a Saturday, for example. Making sure that we know our nearest sail loft and repair shop is, just in case, is never a bad thing to do. There's always something that you've forgotten or you need. So knowing where that is in a hurry is really important. And you're just trying to make it feel as comfortable as possible, I guess, is all we're trying to do. And then just settle into the routine of waking up. So I like to wake up earlier than Christian, and I need a cup of coffee in the morning. So I'll always make a cup of tea for him, because I know if I make him a cup of tea, then he wakes up feeling nice and happy, and rather than as a grumpy northerner. And then make sure we're prepared for the day, all our kit's sorted out. We'll check the notice board first thing to make sure nothing's changed. We'll try and go for a walk down to the water and see what the weather's like, and we'll see if the weather is as we expect it to be. So we'll look at the forecast and see if that matches up what we can see, and then check the boat quickly and make sure that we've limited all our distractions. This is probably the biggest thing I'd say that we've had to develop over our time sailing together, is when work and stuff has increased and families have increased and Christian's got a dog, it's just limiting all these distractions. So all your work is sorted out beforehand, your social medias you don't really look at, all your life admin is sorted. If you've got any banking stuff that needs doing or XYZ, just get it done and out of the way, so you don't worry about that on race days. And then if you need to come ashore after a race day and finish it all off, that's fine, but make sure you've done everything you can when you hit the water, so it's not in the back of your mind. In the morning, it's just yours. I call them mood effectors. Just make sure that you've not got any negative mood effectors, and then just be ready for the racing for sure. And that then sort of takes us into the how to race side of things. And I'm sure we've all seen these cliches before, but you can't win it on day one, but you can certainly lose it, and that is very, very true. If you put a black flag in or something on the first day, you're really struggling. Every point matters, which we'll highlight in due course. And then those numbers, not letters. It's a sport based around numbers for sure. And just some keywords, which I'm sure you've heard me and Christian talk about all the time, is consistent, clean sailing. By that we mean, really safe. So our opening day is often our safest day on the water. So even if we think there's a lot of pin end bias, for example, we'll know that Willie Warren, for example, will be at the pin trying to win it. So there's no point in us being there, because that will just put us at risk of either not winning the pin, getting in a collision, getting in a protest. So we'll just start 5-6 boats up from the pin, knowing that we're still taking the advantage, but we're not putting ourselves at risk. And that's super, super important. And then linked into that is being really clean around the race course. It's very easy to get tied into this aggressive approach of wanting to overtake boats and wanting to, if you're in the right, assert your right. And actually 9 times out of 10, it's much better just to pull out, let somebody go inside you at the mark. So you've not got a rules incident. Let them go around ahead of you. And if you want to protest them, fine. But it's often much better to lose that 1 point there than come charging into a mark, claiming you're in the right, rafting up with loads of boats, drifting downwind away from the next mark, and letting 10, 15 boats go inside you. Even if you're in the right and you protest that one boat gets disqualified and you go up 1 place, but you've lost 14 others. So you're at a net loss. And then we'll really focus on our communication side, especially on day one. You know, there's always a little bit of nerves when you go into a championship, and the way that we get around that is by talking lots. So we make sure we almost over communicate around a race course. We always bank our gains whenever we can. So if we made a nice gain to the left, for example, and we've got the fleet heading off more to the right, we'll never continuously hunt for more and more of a gain. We'll just settle with that being a nice little gain, take it, and then look for our next opportunity. And that comes a bit from understanding the venue. You know, it's if it's a one-sided racetrack, we need to know that. But it's pretty rare that's the case, I think, in sailing. So if you understand that where you need to be, and where you're not willing to let others be, is sort of equally as important, which comes into the fleet side of things. And then I guess I would describe our regatta racing as slow, relentless pressure. That's what we're trying to achieve. We're trying to just constantly stay in the mix and let other people make their mistakes, let other people drop out of contention, and just continuously press people to have to race harder, better, and faster. And that's all we're trying to achieve, is that relentless pressure. And so like the last little bit I wanted just to quickly touch upon was the results table and understanding it. And a quick example I want to share with everyone. So this is from Lou, so the last nationals that ran. And I'm going to apologise in advance to the Chris's, but I think this is really important to wrap our heads around. So the Chris's had that unfortunate incident in race 1, so they got letters in race 1. But then when you look at the next, 6 races, the next 6 races came to an average of I think 5 points for each race, and then they went on and put a black flag into the last race. And if we take away the black flag and say they finished 5th, which is their average for races completed without letters, then they go down onto 61 points, and 61 points puts them up in about 6th, 7th. And then if you take away another load of points if they didn't get the first letters, they end up with much less. I can't remember off the top of my head. I've not got my notes, but they end up being around 5th, like a couple of points off pushing into the top 4, and that's a big difference. You know, coming 11th versus being 5th or 6th literally came down to one race and 1 set of letters. And I think that's super important for us to understand, is that, you know, while we always want to be aggressive and stuff, we need to understand the results table when we're going into that last day, and actually just knowing that an average result would have put us into that top 5 most likely. I think that's super important. And the other good example of that is John and Pete, who as you can see started fantastically well at the regatta. I think got an average about 10 or something going into it, and then they put in this BFD DNF, and so their average race points of 10, if they carried on sailing on their average, would have taken them to 72 points, which would have put them into 7th. And then if you take off the second one, suddenly they go on to 61, and then rather than being 21st, you'd be up in sort of 5th, 6th, 7th position around there. 14 places higher with a realistic option of one good race striking you into the top 5. And so it's just super important to understand that letters are so bad on your scorecard, so bad. And this is one of the R.O.A. lovely quotes that you'll see floating around: winning's the science of being totally prepared. But that is really what we look for. And we look for sort of 10 different points. One is the preparation side. One is that relentless attention to detail. Avoiding the letters, as we just saw with Pete. Really high percentage sailing, so we're happy to lose 2 points if it means that we definitely save 10, for example. We're not willing to risk those 2 points for no real gain. If you win or lose, do the right things. It's really important mentally, I think. And by that, I mean, every race or every day, if you have a good day, you should come off the water, recover, make sure the boat's okay, make sure everything's sorted for the next day, and then go and relax. And the same as if you had a bad day, you should eat, drink the right things, make sure the boat's okay, then relax in the evening, change your mind around and go out the next day. Don't let it fester and then wake up the next morning with loads of stuff to do or loads of aching and muscle pain and stuff. It's just not worth it in the long run. Getting the things done, as we just spoke about, that's a big thing for us. Even if we're up until late into the evening, we want to make sure that when we go to bed, the boat is ready to go. So we quite often have some long evenings when needed. Then enjoying those little things, it's some of the best times I have sailing are at these big regattas with Bizzle, because you spend so much time with these people working really hard to get somewhere, and then when you're there, it's so nice just to enjoy that moment, and enjoy the time that you spend together in these regattas. And then make sure every point matters for sure. Often the difference between a couple of places is a point or two. So where you can take places, take them, and if you have to defend back. But every point matters in a regatta over the long run. And then just make sure you control all of those controllable aspects of your body, your boat, your sails, your mind, everything. Everything you can control, you want to control. And that's it. Over to Chris Kilsby.
Hi, thank you very much, Sam. Thanks for bringing up that little mast break.
I know, sorry.
Definitely should remember the puller.
I know. I tried to find a different example, actually. But...
That's all right. That's absolutely fine. Okay, so we're going to allow people to unmute if they have a particular question for Sam. So does anyone want to start?
Feel free.
Yeah, you can feel free to put it into the chat pane as well.
And you read it out.
And I'll read it out for them. Maybe just to start, Sam,
Yep.
In terms of your prep for East Lothian, have you done any venue preparation, or is there anything that you're sort of focusing on, or sort of expect to see there?
I haven't really looked at the venue yet, truth be told. I think we're expecting it to be a cold sea venue, so you can probably eliminate some of the thermally bits maybe, but I think most important to us is no one's going to have raced properly and certainly not done a regatta for over a year by the time the Nationals comes around. So making sure that we don't regress too much is probably our biggest priority at the moment. Making sure that we don't lose all the stuff that we learned last year and the year before and the year before that. So time on the water is crucial for us, and we're looking at ways of maximizing that. So if we have to fly back for a quarantine, then can we quarantine in a house, for example, and go sailing within that house bubble for a week or 2 weeks on the bounce and sort of work in between if everyone's working remotely. And then the physical side of stuff's already started. So my legs haven't been in a set of toe straps now for 18 months or something. So it's quite a painful stage now. If you squats and weights to make sure that the legs understand that the pain is not optional. Therefore, our two biggest focuses at the moment, and then we'll get to the venue stuff a bit closer to the time.
Good stuff, thank you. So Martin Rouse has said, trying to get Ministry of Pleasure back to its best. As a relatively new member, what are the 3 things I should concentrate on to get the best boat setup?
Oh, there's a question. I think number 1 is make sure that everything works on the boat. I think one of the most annoying things as a sailor is when you go and pull a bit of rope and it doesn't do anything, or a cleat pulls out in your hand, or it's not the right length and you can't pull enough of something on. And so I'd say spend a bit of time making sure that the boat works properly, you know, because what you don't want to ever be doing in sailing is fighting yourself. And the second you start fighting yourself or fighting your boat, you're just wasting energy and time and thought process for something that doesn't give any gain. So I think make sure your boat's sorted is probably number 1. And then I'd advise you to start in that sort of 10, 12 knot range, you know, like start on towards where your base setting would be, if you want to call it that. Get that to a position that you're happy and you think you're fast and in control, and you know you're not overpowered, not underpowered. And then from there you can then scale it up as you need to, or scale it back if the breeze drops a bit. And then the third thing I think was sort of what I touched on with the sail stuff is make sure that you don't want a sail that is really fine and hard to tune. You know, you want a sail that will do you across the wind range. You know, it will be as good in the light stuff as it is in the strong stuff, and it might not be the quickest sail in 10 knots or 15 knots or 18 knots or whatever, but it certainly won't be the slowest across the board. And if you can find a sort of a sail that's average in terms of how much you need to trim and control it, that's probably your starting point, I think.
Great stuff, thank you.
No worries.
Okay, so Ian says, it seems that preparation has a major influence on the performance at a national champs. Do you think that Salcombe Week is a purer way of determining the best sailor?
Absolutely, yeah. I would say that Salcombe Week should replace the America's Cup, I think, if I had it my way.
Yes.
I guess they're very different skill sets, aren't they?
Very different, yeah. It's but we actually like Salcombe, I think, is actually great preparation for the nationals, not in terms of your straight line boat speed necessarily or how you race a regatta, but it's such a interesting venue that you have to be on top of all of your like sail trimming, all of your communication with each other of where the next breeze is coming from, how much further can you go in until you have to take your rudder off, you know, all those sorts of questions. That all of that communication side, if you can get that nailed down in Salcombe, will massively help you at the nationals for sure.
Thanks, Sam. So one from Alex Warren. You're an expert at the last Champs Cruise Union. You got any good tips on surviving?
Yeah, avoid being next to Alex. My number 1 tip. Yeah, enjoy it and drink a lot of water before you get there, I'd say. That's probably the biggest bit of advice.
Actual advice. Good stuff. That's all we've got on the chat. Does anyone have any questions they want to bring up?
Am I live? Could I speak?
You can.
It's Pat Blake here, Sam. You've spoken a lot about winning and how it is when you're at the front of the fleet, but even someone as talented as you must have lost a few races as well. And I'd like you to think about the people who are further down the fleet. What happens, for example, with your communication when you've chosen the wrong side of the first beat, for example?
Yeah, sure. Very good question. Yeah, I mean, I've certainly lost significantly more boat races than I've been at the front of, for sure. I think you're right. It's a big, or can be a big issue for sure, and it's something that we also struggle with. You know, I mean, we're not going to pretend that if we're having a bad race, everything is rosy for sure, because you know we're very competitive people, and that's not the case. I think we have we've sailed together long enough where we're very good at snapping each other out of that. So if it has gone a bit quiet, one of us is normally very good at, you know, being like, come on, this has to get better, or fixing the problem by over communicating ourselves. But I'd say it's probably about understanding that you're never out of a race, and just because you make a mistake or a bad decision in a race doesn't end it. What ends a race is then making that situation worse and worse and worse and worse, because you're reaching for some magic bullet that just doesn't exist, or you're not talking properly and the kite comes down and the crew's not ready or whatever, and the kite goes over the bow, and, you know, all those little mistakes that make it worse and worse and worse. So I think just trying to recenter the boat into just the process of everything you do is just another little process. And if you just focus on that step by step throughout the race, then I think you'll be surprised how quickly you advance forward during the race, because there'll be lots of people not doing that and going backwards. So I think not compounding errors is definitely the most important thing, and that often comes from someone on board just snapping the team out of it as best they can.
Yeah, good advice. Thank you.
No worries.
So I've got one more here. Pond sailors can find it difficult on sea at the champs. What key techniques are essential for sea sailing versus pond sailing?
Don't sail too high. It's probably number one. Yeah, especially when it's choppy and wavy and stuff. It's pondies have a tendency to pinch, I'd say, which is fine on the flatter water, but on the wavier stuff, it's much more about keeping the boat moving forward for sure. I would say having the mindset that every wave you get to is a quarter of a boat length. So every wave you get to, you can do something to either go forward or go backwards on that wave. And then it's just about time on the water of, you know, understanding as a crew that, you know, you can give a bigger hike on top of the wave because it's going to be a bit windier, and then you're going to have to be a bit more inboard as you come down the wave because it's going to lull off in the trough of the wave. So there's a bit of technique around that, but I think most people when they get onto sea sailing think it's more about banging a corner and that'd be good enough, and it's about picking the right corner or picking the right side. And actually it's much more about just keeping a nice clean lane, so you're not sailing anyone dirty wind, you're not sailing on a bad shift, so you're not sailing on a bad number at a bad angle, and you're just constantly sailing in clear breeze, clear water, sailing as much of your own race as you can. And that I think will take you a long way into things. You get a difficulty when you bang a corner and then you've got no options left to decide on any decisions. Whereas if you stay more central, and you can work aside, but certainly not bang aside, you know, you've got to be incredibly quick to bang aside and come out top.
Thank you very much, Sam. So we've got one more. As someone who grew up in Salcombe, is it not that it requires a different sort of preparation, in that knowledge of the geography can gain you a lot of distance over others? We sail at the back of the fleet, so perhaps it's less noticeable at the front, or is that not something you worry about? Maybe a Salcombe-centric question.
I worry about Salcombe most of my living hours, I think. Yeah, there's obviously a huge amount going on at Salcombe, and the people that have sailed there are more accustomed to it. I'd say there are certain rules around Salcombe that get batted around, some of which I believe, some of which I think might be some folk tales. I think, yeah, I mean, the biggest thing at Salcombe, I think, is probably the locals or people that sail there more often know more about the tidal flows around the little bays and things. But I think Salcombe still fundamentally comes down to those that are sailing the boats better and are thinking further ahead often do best. And Salcombe is one of those venues where you need to be looking for the next pressure, working out, do you need to go to it or is it coming to you? And, you know, you have so many more decisions in a race in Salcombe than you do at a regatta in reality. You know, in a regatta race, you're probably making maybe 3 or 4 key decisions on an upwind leg, whereas at Salcombe, you could be making a key decision every 20-30 seconds upwind. So it's probably more that, I think, and just we're trying to take more and more of a step back away from Salcombe sailing, as it were, and think actually, what's the reality of the venue, like, and just little things like you don't want to be under the cliff, if it's coming from over the cliff, don't be close to the cliff because there's less wind. It's very easy to lose sight of those sorts of things at Salcombe, I think.
Thanks, Sam. We've got one more, which is in relation to the actual sails that you're using. It's probably not sort of the time to discuss sort of exactly what you're using, the different brands and whatnot. But I guess you've already picked up on the point about that you want a good sail for all the different conditions. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're looking. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I think most of the sort of the known sail makers in the Merlin fleet do some pretty good all-round sails. You just have to try and find one that matches how you want to sail a boat and your crew setup. It's like, so some of the more all-round sails are a bit flatter and designed for lighter teams, and some have got a bit more depth for those maybe weighing into the upper scale. And working out those things, I think, is really important, and not just buying a sail because somebody else tells you to, or it looks pretty, or somebody else is using that sail, because it might not necessarily be the same thing. So a great example is us and the Calverts had the same sail manufacturer at the last couple of nationals, and we had very different sails because they weighed so much less than us, for example, and we often struggled to keep up with them in the lighter stuff and the flatter water, and vice versa in the windier stuff. So I think do a bit of shopping around and work out what weight you're going to sail at first, and then look at what sail might be best for you. And I think most sail makers have got a good option for you.
Yeah, thanks for that, Sam. That's appreciated. Okay, I don't think we've got any more questions. Certainly not on the chat pane. So I guess, yeah, just maybe turn off your audio, and yeah, we'll just say thank you very much, Sam.
No worries.
Thank you, Sam.
Thank you.
No worries. Most welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sam.
No
Cheers, Sam.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sam.
Oh, I was just going to add, we've got the Merlin Rocket Boat Chat with David Batty talking rules next month on the 11th of March at 7:30.